Moran, thanks very much for joining me on Buckshot.
No bother, Tom.
From the bunker of County Meath.
Yes, indeed. I let you off calling it a bunker for now.
Meath is all right, in fairness. As counties go, there's worse ones than Meath, like.
Yeah, I like it. But I miss Dublin, but like I think it's not there's something nice about being in the countryside for the lockdown. Do you know, like being in an
Oh
apartment
yeah,
in Dublin, it'd be a bit grim.
that's my biggest thing because we lived in Portobello for ages, and my biggest thing was as I got older, I started to think more about this kind of stuff. I was like, man, I'm kind of claustrophobic in here. Like everybody has skinny jeans. I don't fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People. A lot of wine drinkers around me, like and stuff. So, and now we're out the country. It was like, oh right, we can. So nothing actually looks any different for me either. Out here, it's just you can kind of take a breath of air. Like I think I might freak out a small bit. You said you were telling me we went to record this yesterday, but every other bastard on the planet was on Skype at the time.
Yeah.
It's Dunboyne, is it?
Yeah, Dunboyne. So I lived there my whole life, like, and it's great. Like, we're kind of in the middle of a town, but at the same time, you're like 2 minutes if you want to go out onto the back roads and go for a run. Do you know, it's nice. Like, I had like a 7 minute walk to school and probably like a 5 minute walk to the bus stop, and it's one of them. Dunboyne's one of them weird places where you're right in the border, so you get Dublin bus. So like you kind of have the advantages of the city in a way, and that regularity of transport and stuff, especially as a young fella if you're commuting in and out. But also it is parochial, it's small and it's GAA, and it's like it's got those good parts of the country as well. So it was like I don't feel proper country, I don't feel proper dub, but I'm very much a Meath man. I love Meath, and if it comes to the GAA or something like that, Meath is like my identity in that sense. But like Dublin very much feels like home at the same time.
Yeah, I bet if anybody ever heard a hint of your accent, from somewhere else in the country, like Galway, and they went, "What part of Dublin are you from?" You'd fucking freak out.
Oh, and it happens all the time. And I think especially because doing bits like voiceover and stuff, and they want that sort of neutral thing, do you know? Like
that's neutral, Tom. I've gotten a neutral one too in inverted commas. Yeah. By neutral, I mean, can you soften a Dublin accent, please? Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, they do. Like whenever they say it to me, I'm just kind of like, all right, so it's less 39A and more 46A. Do you know what I mean? Like they mean just outside it up a little bit. That's what they mean. They just won't say it like that. But yeah.
Because I Dunboyne I still get a shudder when I think, even though it's a fine town. I did a corporate gig one time, a Christmas corporate gig in Dunboyne Castle, and it was for a pharmaceutical company, and nobody in the company seemed to like each other. Do you know what I mean? They were all there, and Mary from HR had booked in some comedians, and oh my Jesus, and I had a mental breakdown because I think we had a shop at the time, a toy shop, and I'd been awake for like fucking 50 hours or something. I did this gig, and halfway during it, I just sat on the edge of the stage. I went, "Look, you cunts, you better get on fucking board with this, because I'm ready to fucking snap." And you could see they were like, for my betterment, they kind of went, "Oh, the poor man."
You just emotionally blackmailed an audience,
Oh yeah. But a fine town. Tell me this: the last kind of, the before days. Before the apocalypse, you were the last I heard or seen of you was Smock Alley, your own show. What was it called?
So it's called Comedically Heartbroken.
Yeah, what was the choice in jumping? You going, I'm writing a one-man show, and going, like, that's ballsy that you didn't, try that in a little festival somewhere first. You went, give me Smock Alley.
Yeah, so the way it worked out was great actually, because it's a festival that they do there called Seen and Heard, and it's for new work. So basically they'll give you 2 nights in the theatre and they'll give you half a slot. So you're basically paired with another show, and the sort of idea of it is that you use it to workshop towards a full show. So ultimately, like, my goal with this show will be to do it in the Dublin Fringe Festival, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and hopefully over in London somewhere. I'd love to do it in the Soho Theatre or somewhere like that. And it's great. It gives you a sounding board. Now, I kind of knew what I was about and I knew what I wanted to do. And basically, yeah, so like if you'd think of a show as like a full arc, I basically made the first half of the arc, and now the second half will be kind of like knocking down a lot of the dominoes that are sort of set up across the first half. So like it was great. And for me, I'd written solo shows before, but they were very much theatre based, and like I know you have experienced this as well, where like there wasn't really that scope for a bit more audience interaction or a bit of crack, or just a bit like to go with the with the moment or whatever was happening in the room. You couldn't really name that in a theatre setting because you're very much on book and it's written and it's rigid. And I just sort of felt a little bit like, I'd love to take it like that live. Like the thing that's special about theatre and comedy is that it is live. And I was like, well, how can we embrace that as much as possible while also keeping the bits of like theatre and kind of like comedy theatre that I love, which is, you know, a little bit more sort of licensed to not have to be funny for 60 minutes, like to make it like absolutely, you know, 45, 50 minutes are very funny. And then 10 minutes are a bit more like introspective and a little bit more deep, and to kind of give myself license for that as well.
Yeah, well, that's the hour show vibe rather than comedy club 15 minute slot where you have the foot on the floor the whole, you know. And that's the thing, because people won't, like, also I found, because I remember the first time I did Edinburgh, I took it like I put the pace of a 15-minute on an hour, and sweet Jesus, people were beaten up and you're losing them. So, do you know, they're going, "Ara, fuck it." Yeah. It's a bit of a story, you know, like, relax. And it was and again, nobody gave me advice on it, but I quickly realized about 10 shows in, oh, Jesus Christ, I better let this soak a bit in the middle, you know what I mean? Like, for the want of a better phrase, like.
Yeah, and I like that. Even in the comedians I like, there's like some of them I'm like, I don't even know, are they of course they're comedians, like they are, but if you see like an hour show of like someone like Mike Birbiglia is someone I really like, but he's like a storyteller, really. Now he's funny, he's naturally funny, and he sort of gets that for free, but like his stories are like beautifully structured and stuff like that, and he's talking about real stuff, like he's generally talking about his real life and his real situation. And yeah, I just find there to be something really engaging about that, and the performers that I tend to go towards do stuff like that. So I was kind of like, right, how can I make the most me version of something like that? And yet it turned into comedically heartbroken. It was so funny. Even last night I was doing a different interview over the phone with a radio station, and they were asking about it, and I was like, it's actually the worst topic to do a show about, because ultimately the show is kind of about being single and being heartbroken. Now it's as much about like love as it is about that, but it's actually an awful thing to talk about in some ways, because you end up just having to talk about being single all the time, which is just
funny because it's right now, if you were a woman, that would be that'd be the hottest topic ever, because that is, a lot of the American female comedians seem to be leaning into being single, you know, and heartbroken and all the rest of it. So yeah, you've only got being, you know, a straight white male against you there, Tom, you know.
Yeah, and you know, but it's funny as well, because you know I've submitted it to the Dublin Fringe now. God only knows what that happened. That's in September, so I'm hopeful that they might still do that, because you know, in Fringe, about smaller audiences. So I hope. But look, who knows? But anyway, the application process is pretty difficult to get in. Like 1 in 6, 1 in 7 shows get in. So and even doing the application, like it's tricky, because you're asking questions and you know yourself, especially as a comedian, like the answers to like questions like why now, which is always difficult, because you're kind of like, you know, the answer for me like was sort of like, well, you know, it's a story I'm interested in telling right now. To be honest, I probably won't be interested in talking about this in a year or two. Like I'll have moved on in my life and things like that. But as well, I was like, there is something interesting about Ireland at the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Like, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the two biggest cultural influences in the country right now, I would say, are Blind Boy Boat Club's podcast and the Tommy Tiernan chat show on RTE. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're the two things that probably people are talking about and connecting with more than anything. I was like, that is interesting, because like, to me, what that is that's just two Irish men who are doing something that Irish men traditionally aren't very good at, which is kind of being vulnerable, talking about like their feelings, their, you know, connection, masculinity, like vulnerability. I was like, that is interesting. You know what you're saying about like it's if that's what a lot of American female comedians are talking about, and you're right. And I'm like, but it's interesting if that starts to seep into like Irish culture a bit more, which I think Tiernan and Blind Boy do a little bit. Like, it's interesting that it actually does really resonate, because I think people feel starved of that, or have done for a long time.
Oh yeah, well, I get messages from lads on the podcast, because I mean, just by its very nature, it would be, even though when you look at the demographics, it's actually 46-54 men to women, but
Right.
I get a lot of messages from blokes basically who just can't really talk to their friends and stuff, you know, or they feel they can't. So I make a purpose every so often to chime in on the podcast about that. But now I know, the thing is, I'll make a point right at the top of what I'm saying. I'm no fucking expert. In fact, far from it. And that's something I think, the cynic in me every so often with the likes of Blind Boy, sometimes I kind of have to pull back and go, hold on to fuck now, Blind Boy. you're no expert. You're quoting from experts too, which I personally, I just feel I have to say that. But it is a good thing to pop it in there every so often. It's all right. You know what I mean? To actually talk about your emotions. But at the same time, if you don't feel you want to talk about it, or you don't have issues, don't feel you're boxing. Because that's another thing too. I get messages from women as well, kind of saying, it would seem to be trendy right now to be talking about your emotions and being, almost melancholy all the time. And a lot of people they don't have that on their lexicon. They don't, they're happy tipping away, do you know? And they almost feel embarrassed to not have something to say too. Like, or they're happy just to tip away a couple of pints at the weekend, maybe puck a ball around as well on a Sunday. And then they live a simplistic life and they're happy with that. So when they're heroes, i.e. Tiernan or whatever, are talking about, the briars of emotions that they live amongst on a daily basis, and they're going, I can have ham and cheese sandwiches every day and I love them. So sometimes you have to straddle both sides of the fence, I find, and go, look, not everybody's struggling, but for the people that are struggling, leave it open. And I told this story before. Another place I lived out the country, a place called Broadford. It's out by Kinnegad, between Kinnegad and Enfield. And they had developed these a lot of these, I suppose, middle-aged single farmers, lads. They were the youngest son. They got left the 100 acres, and now all the women have gone away. So there's no fucking women. So all these lads are kind of left around. But their way of dealing with mental health was rough and crude, but it was streets ahead of what you think they were. Like there was a lad there sitting in the pub, and I was amongst them and whatever, and they were saying, "What's wrong with you today?" Aries, the fucking head isn't great with me. Do fucking, I was thinking about herself. He was the first man in Ireland, as it turns out, this guy, to ever get divorced. Turns out she was cheating. Yeah, cheating with the coal man. And this stuff it's a fucking sitcom sitting there, like, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff. But the whole group of lads around the pub went, "Hi, don't be fucking hiding that shit. Be talking about that stuff. Don't want to find you on the end of a fucking rope." And you're like, okay, you went straight there with it, lads.
Yeah.
But it was, you know what I mean? Don't be hiding those emotions. And these are all blokes in their 50s, and you go, but we're being told these lads don't know how to deal with that stuff. Turns out they did in their own fucking way. Now, there was no Dr. Phil's or Oprah hugs going on either. Like, so your man just unloaded his heart to the pub.
Yeah.
For 20 minutes.
Amazing.
And he felt powerful after it. And I just stood there in awe going, right, okay, this is completely recalibrated what I thought. Because you would assume in the countryside, it'd be all, like, a fucking scene from The Field where Tig is looking at the ground, like,
Yeah.
But you are right, I think. And for those fellas, like, they'd be on board with what you're talking about too, being fucking critically heartbroken, forever a singleton kind of a thing, like, because these lads, they ain't ever getting fucking married, any of them, like,
Yeah, like, and it's interesting, because I think you're right. Like, I think it's, you meet people where they're at, and like that, that's amazing. Like, I love seeing that when, like, sure, I see it with my friends, like, and it's interesting as well, being from the country and coming from, like, like a sports background and GAA background, and then going into a real artsy world where, like, your kind of feelings are your currency in ways. But then like, I go back to the lads here who I love and who I laugh with more than anything. But like, the way we'll connect is by just ripping, like, strips off each other. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that is like, but that is how, like, it sounds cliche, but that is how we, like, show love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you do. And like, and I think that's what's interesting about, like, doing that show, because, like I was saying to you, like, there's an element of embarrassment about it, because I really am showing me at, like, my worst, or not even my worst, but like my most vulnerable. But I think for me in that show, like, the job of it was to be like I'm willing to sort of show, and I even exaggerate, like, in comedy, like, I will make it like that little bit worse. I'll turn up the heat and that, because I know it's like, it's sort of, there's just a vulnerability to it, which I think is what people can get on board with me. And but you turn that up, and it is amazing. Like, people will sort of, I'm sure you have it, like, people will always be like, "Oh, it's so brave, it's so brave, it's so brave." And like, for me, it actually, like, it doesn't feel brave at all, to be honest. Like, I'm doing it because, like, it's a way, like, again, like, I'm sure there's a bit of ego there, but there's also a bit of, like, I know this is how to sort of to get you as well. Like, you know, and it's interesting to use those shit things or those bad things, because ultimately the show is about like a horrible time. Like, sort of, I kind of use it as like one of the ways I'm trying to phrase it is like to learn to dance in the rain of heartbreak, and to sort of celebrate like, all right, yeah, like life is shit and it's got all these shit bits, but also like anything that can make you feel that bad, it's only because the other extremity of it is so fucking good. And it's like, well, you know, you can't get one without the other, so let's dance in all of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's. I mean, it's again an old cliche, but any comedian that goes on holidays does not want it to go well because they want a story. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear a good story coming back out of a fucking holiday, like, you know.
Right.
And that's what people want to jump on board with too.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, that's why I probably lean into the culture thing heavy, because it's a ridiculous character. So it is a version of yourself, but at the same time, you turn the juice up, like, because nobody wants to see a normal, you know. Nobody wants to, you know, to hear a normal person up there, like. But was the idea then, because you're doing stand up as well? Is that to kind of sharpen your knives for such a situation, or is it you're like, fuck this, I'm giving stand up a go too, because a lot of actors wouldn't, no fucking way would they give it a go, like.
Oh no, I'm proper giving it a go. I love stand up, and I love, like, I've got such fucking I love it. I just, because I love how hard it is. I love how hard it is. I have such respect for it as a thing, and I love that if it's kind of all on you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're in a play and it goes bad, yeah, well, the writing was shit, or like, yeah, that director didn't know what they were on about, or like the rest of the cast, like, we didn't gel. Where stand up, no, it doesn't matter. Like, it's problem solving, like, on the spot, in the moment, like, and really, like, there's, even if you're like, you know, the way sometimes you'll hear comedians being like, oh, that's a shit crowd or whatever, and like that pharmacy crowd, like, we all know what that looks like, but ultimately no one gives a shit. It's your job to go and make whatever it is work, and I love that.
It's almost like and now this isn't my wording, this is to repeat, he's an MMA fighter called Will Fleury,
Right.
and we've done a couple of podcasts together, and in talking with him, he went, Jesus, and it was actually kind of off air, he went, Jesus, there's a lot of similarities mentally between stand-up and having to fight.
Yeah.
Because once the door closes behind you on the cage, and I mean, and I'm totally not comparing myself to a fucking pro fighter or stand-up stuff. Quite the fucking opposite, actually, physically. Yeah. But he's mentally, it's all on you at that stage. And if you get your trousers pulled down, nobody gives a fuck. Yeah. It's all on you. You know, you can turn around and blame the judges and all the rest. He says, but the bottom line is I should have fucking knocked him out. I didn't do a good enough job to knock him out. And he says, and it's kind of the same way with G. As a straight stand-up, you know, sure, some lads will hide behind a guitar, you know, or whatever. But the reality is if you're doing just straight stand-up, it's just you and a mic. Or someplace like the International, which up until recently didn't have a fucking mic.
Yeah.
It's raw. You know, it's an interesting one to put it. It's like, all right, and I think when we were talking yesterday before it was just a bad recording, and you were asking what my thinking, and I think when I worked in construction, that kind of, because things were at such a pace back in the day, everything was all on you, but also there was nearly a leniency for not having to stay between the lines if the job got done and got done well. So all at 100 miles an hour. So you're problem solving while on the job. And it kind of, it's kind of fulfilled that same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where there's no fluff. There's no arguing with it. Like, yes, it can be subjective. And I've sat there when, I suppose, you know, we'll call them a comedian of sorts, but because they're of a trendy vibe at the current time, you'll see people sit there and afterwards they go, amazing. Like, I went to a blind boy gig one time, live podcast, and he must have maybe spoke for 3 minutes through an hour, and the guest he talked about amphibious animals and the likes of lizards and stuff for 57 minutes of that, and people walked away going, blind boy's amazing. You're like, hold on now, lads, hold on to fuck. So sometimes that can be, you know, so that's the subjective side, but the reality is, when people, you know, when you're in a comedy club, bottom line is you have to be able to fucking get the job done yourself. And I suppose when you take that back into the likes of your show in Smock Alley, you know, your fucking knives would be proper sharp, you know, because if you gave your show to another actor and said, here, work with that. Because did you direct yourself? Did you bring anybody else in for help?
Yeah, I sort of had outside eyes on it. I have one of my best friends, and like, she's purposely one of my best friends, and she she's a theater maker and a director, but I'm more brought here in because she loves stand up. Because it's funny in making the show, and this was actually a real lesson. Like I showed it to a few friends, like writer friends, but they'd be more theater based, and like theater makers. And and it was useful because I got some really good feedback and stuff about it. But also I was kind of like, oh yeah, like you don't like stand-up comedy, like as a medium, like you don't like a lot of the problems with it were like they were kind of like, yeah, no, it's actually it's really good and it's really funny, and like they were laughing when we were reading it and stuff. And but then at a certain point they were just like, but like it's all sort of true and it's all about you, and they're like, I don't really get it. And I was like, and it made me feel really self-conscious for a minute because I was like, oh shit, like is this just some totally narcissistic trip, like where I'm like, am I using like an audience as therapist?
Now you're a stand-up comedian. You're a stand-up. You're a fucking narcissist. There you go. You can admit it. You can admit it.
Yeah, totally. And I was like, no, like that's not what it is. Like I have specifics in my situation that I know feel specific to me, but like ultimately, if I talk about them, they're not going to end up being that specific, and other people are going to relate, and other people will laugh at it, and I think other people will actually feel like I think one of the things that I really like and yeah, I was interested to ask you this yesterday. I didn't get a chance, but one of the things I like, right, for me in making whatever it is, like I use the term with no pretense about it, but let's just say art, and I mean under that like under acting, writing, whether it's like film, TV, theater, comedy, it doesn't matter, but like under that umbrella, because we straddle a few of those spheres. For me, I think like there's a couple of things I do, but I love the idea of bringing joy. I love that as an idea of bringing joy to people. And I love the idea of making people feel a little bit less alone. Like whether that's in like the dark parts of their thoughts or in like, even just in like, facilitating laughter of a room full of people, whatever that looks like, I don't really mind. But those are two like sort of, without getting on a fucking like, preacher box about it, but they're two things that I think are really valid things to do with your life, is to bring joy and to make people feel less alone in the world. And I was like, I think that I can do that best through this medium right now. But I was curious for you, like in the different things that you do, is there a common thread, something like that resonates across it all, or is it all very, yeah? What's your relationship to that?
It must be. I don't overly think about it too much, because if I did, I'd get stressed out. That kind of way. I've found that I've only a certain level of capacity. I'm unbelievably driven, but if I start sweating about all the other stuff, but I would imagine there has to be a thread of that. But it's almost like the fighter thing. Who wants to be the toughest guy in the room? Who wants to be the funniest guy in the room? They both kind of carry a bit of weight to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And what is the reason behind that? Is it because you have something to prove? Maybe I do. Do maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of a bad childhood that I had or anything like that. So I would imagine it's probably just the enjoyment of bringing joy to people. And probably it's feeding into my ego a little bit too. Like, because let's be honest, you do nice things for people to make yourself feel good. Totally. You can dress it up whatever way you want, but the bottom line is it makes you feel good at the end of the day, So I suppose it probably is the same thing to a certain degree, is actually just bringing joy to people. And I don't put too much. I should probably think about it maybe more, or maybe I get nervous. I don't know. But it's actually through the podcast as well. People have messaged me, especially from abroad, people who are missing home, like, fuck, you know what I mean? They're going, this is a service you're providing. I'm going, what? You don't really think about it that way. You know what I mean? You go, oh, well, Jesus. And people have come up to me after gigs and gone, man, I've had the fucking worst month of my life. Like, and that put me right in a good place. Like, fuck. Oh. Okay. Right. I've never, and I would never consider that there's people. If I did consider that, I'd probably shit the bed. But there are people in the audience who fucking almost medically need it.
Oh, it's so true. Like I heard there's a brilliant Irish actor, Aaron Monaghan's his name. He's a theatre guy. He'd be doing loads of druid stuff. He's like in the Abbey all the time. He's a great actor. But I remember listening to a podcast with him on it, and I'll never forget it. But like that, and now he wouldn't be like, I wouldn't consider him like. I'm sure on some level we're all the same, but like he is an artist, you know what I mean? An artiste. Right. Yeah. And I say that with total respect. He's fucking unbelievable at what he does. But what I'm saying to you, it was really interesting. And I'll never forget it. One time he said, whenever I go on stage, like whatever I'm doing, and some days like I don't want to or I don't feel in the mood, but I just remember there is someone out there that, as you said, like needs this. Like it's not that they're here for the crack or they're here as a gift. Like there's loads of that, absolutely. But there's someone out there who actually needs this. And I think even now you really see it. I feel it now with like, because I love podcasts. I listen to hours of podcasts, and like even now, especially, I've heard other people say it to me in the last day or so, like the fact that podcasts and things like that are still coming out in this crazy time,
Yeah.
it actually is making people feel, oh, all right, like, because I guarantee you the people who listen to this podcast, they're not listening for the guests, they're not listening for me, they're not listening to the rugby players, not listening they're listening for you because you're their friend. You know what I mean? They love you.
Yeah, well, it is. It is. I mean, it's been going 3.5 years at this stage. So, and there are people that are virtual friends on it. You know, I've never met them or anything, but we still converse, and I'm doing it for them. You know, so it's a very valid point. It is a service. Like I did one a couple of it's Saturday. I can't even remember because I got slightly drunk, but I did it live as well, and you could see people were jumping on, fucking delighted. There was absolutely no talk about the situation that's going on. It all dipped straight away into the gutter, and we talked about dick memes for a good 45 minutes of dick memes, and the background to each, you know, like the big black lad with the 2-foot long cock and stuff like that. And it just, when people went off and Googled stuff, then, you know what I mean? Like, and people were coming back, and afterwards, lads were messaging, people were messaging, girls were messaging, going, "Oh, thanks for that, because the telly is, you know, sick of the telly, just sitting on their phone, maybe sipping an old vino or whatever, having a can." And then it felt like a service. It was like, oh, this is what this is supposed to be about, right? People can actually.
Because I think that's that's what, like, I was thinking about this last night. I was talking to a friend and being just like, just the hard thing I think about, like, the coronavirus, and like, please take this with a pinch of salt in the sense that, look, we're, like, I'm safe and I'm not sick and I'm in a house and all these. I know there's like a load of privilege coming there, but let's just put that aside and talk honestly. The hard thing about it is that it attacks your community, and it attacks your ability to, like, literally just like to be in a room with people and to touch people and to do these things that, like, you don't realize are actually so fundamental, and I would argue the most important and, like, most joyous parts of being a human being. And this virus and the way that it has to be combated attacks all of that. And as I said, like, even like the kind of tragedy of, like, hearing these stories of, like, old people who have to die in a room alone and can't hold the hands of their children because they have the virus and the virus can't spread. Like, that's like the extreme end of it. And then the lower end of it is just like, well, I don't know, whatever it is, whether it's like family and friends being separated, grandchildren from grandparents, or, like, you know, couples who don't live together, all this sort of stuff. But, like, it attacks that fundamental need for, like, community and touch and human connection. And that's nasty. Do you know what I mean?
Very much an Irish thing too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it whips away all of that. So it takes it away. Like, it's like, I mean, for the want of a better example, like the AIDS epidemic, you cannot have sex. You know what I mean? Blood transfusion, but you could still shake hands with somebody. You could give them a hug, you could give them a fist bump. You could still go to the pub and chat with. So, you know, this is just actually out of fear. It's just like, no, you can't be around each other.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was 15 years ago when we didn't have Skype or podcasts or whatever, the depression levels, I would imagine, would go through the fucking roof. Like,
100%. 100. And do you know, actually, that's a really good point. Like, because even what you were saying about that place you were living near Enfield, like, before, and those men who had that system in place, like, what do those boys do now? Do you know, like that? Like, that's a real thing. Like, that's the dark side of it. Like, and that is proper dark, because you forget that, like, you know, people are lucky and they've got good networks of friends and stuff. And even that, like, like, I don't know, I was thinking this the other day. I was like, I have so many friends. Like, I have the most friends of anyone I know, and also I don't know if I have any friends. Like, do you know that kind of way? Like, I was having this thought the other day, and but, like, for those people who actually really do have a smaller network, or, like, and they live by themselves, like, even for me, I live in an apartment in Rathmines, and I share it with a fella, but he's from Monaghan, and he went home because he got the nod to work from home, and I was there, and, like, I just happened to get sick with tonsillitis and had to move, and I was like, oh, I'm actually super sick, like, I kind of need to be looked after a little bit, and I'm very lucky to have a mom and a dad, and I was able to move back home with them for a little while. But, like, otherwise I would have been in Rathmines for, I don't know how long this lockdown's going to go for, but in a little apartment, like, in a little block of flats for, I don't know, like, maybe 6 weeks by myself. And, like, what happens then? Like, there's an actual darkness to that, like.
Yeah. I mean, and on top of that, I mean, it's taken away people's ability to work too. Like, you know, if you can, working from home is all well and good and all the rest, but if you can't, like, more or less, our work has been whipped from under us.
Yeah.
And it's very dehumanizing, isn't it? To just go, nah, that's it. We're not saying you're worthless, but you're kind of fucking worthless for now.
Yeah.
Get out of the way. Yeah,
Yeah.
that small bit.
Totally. Like, and you know, I don't know what I would do because, and as well, like, it makes me think as well. I don't know what your relationship to this is, but like, my work is a huge part of my identity. Like, one of the things I like about myself is that I am an actor and a comedian and a writer. Like, I really, I love those things, and they're like some of my favorite things to do. And I actually have a lot of my value and self-esteem tied up in them. And I think that's why I love writing, because no one can take it away from no one can take it away from you. And
Yeah.
it's funny, actually, I was listening to your podcast with Ali O'Rourke the other day, and you were having like, I knew what she was talking about. It was on that Rent-A-Comic thing, but there was a big debate going on about like comedians calling themselves comedians when they don't make their full-time living off comedy, and like whether that's valid or not. And I was like, that's fucking nonsense, because for me, like, the minute you stand on stage and do comedy, you're a comedian, and the minute you pick up a pen and start writing, you're a writer. Like, that's what's beautiful about it. There's no barrier to entry. Like, they're like, it's like writing is a verb. Like, you do it, then you're a writer. You know what I mean? Okay,
Yeah.
if you want to say like professional writer, professional comedian, totally accept. That's a different thing. But like, what's been great about it is like that you can still tap away and do your bit of writing or whatever. Because yeah, like, I don't know about you, I love all the jobs where I get to go and stand in front of audiences and whatever that looks like, and just connect with people. Like, it's like my fucking mass. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. It's and when that's taken away, and as well, like, it will be interesting when you come out of this, because I try not to like get in a soapbox about it, but like, sometimes I know, like, artists and stuff, or like actors or comedians, wherever, you can feel like, because the lifestyle can be difficult and financially it can be precarious, as we're seeing now, but like the real value of what like actors and writers and all that stuff is doing now, like, literally everyone is spending all their time on Netflix or reading a book, or like, it is all, you don't think of it as like the arts or like show business, but that is a huge part of what will get people through this. And it sounds trite, but it's actually not. Like, it gives people so much meaning, and yeah, and again, just like connection and distraction and whatever you want to call it in a time like this. And yeah, like, I'm always careful, because you don't want to go down that path of being like, because I don't like when comedians or actors go like, oh, well, I'm not saving lives, because it's like, yeah, you're not, but like, no one's fucking asking you to. Like, we have doctors for that. Like, it doesn't invalidate your service, and at the same time, you don't want to be like, what I do is the most important thing, and I am this like gift to the world. But it is funny how you sort of see the value of it now, even in a time when the value of it's been totally depreciated because you can't fucking do it. You see it in another way, and there's something kind of ingratiating about that, I think.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if Netflix was if Netflix was shut down in the morning, what would happen? You know what I
Like,
mean?
people will go bananas.
And it takes Netflix is full of actors,
Yeah.
comedians and all the rest of it. So yeah, that's a really valid point. I probably didn't think too much about. Where did you studied drama, didn't you?
Yeah, so I studied in DIT. It's a drama performance, and it's a great course. It's 3 years, and you get a degree out of it, which was obviously like attractive. Now I was lucky; I didn't have parents that were like super. My parents were like kind of appropriately cynical about me going into like
Yeah,
acting,
yeah,
because when I was that age, actually for me it was musical theater. I wanted to go and be in Les Mis for the rest of my life.
right.
That's what I wanted to do, and I like, because I'm a singer, and I play music and that kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately, like, when I went to DIT and I got to go to the States and go to Chicago and study there, and it was kind of there I discovered like writing, and we did this class called solo performance, which was just amazing. And you kind of wrote about yourself, like, you stood on stage not as an actor, but like just as a person, not as a character, basically. And
Yeah,
you were given prompts to write about. It could be anything like mom or dad or death or a historical figure or like a rant or sex or love. It could be anything. But you're basically, and it was like, now in hindsight, I'm like, that is how I got into stand-up comedy. Now in this class there was no pressure to be funny, but if you're funny, you'll just be funny.
yeah.
You won't have to try. And like, the funny came kind of out with me even when I wasn't really trying to be funny. And but what I really liked was, yeah, being on like in front of a group of people and having written the thing and performing the thing. And yeah, ultimately that weaved into stand-up comedy. But like, yeah, my background would be in like classical actor training, which I'm grateful for, but also like I've fucked a load of it away.
But where does a lad playing football in fucking Dunboyne go? I want to be in Les Mis. Put me in Les Mis. How does that? Because how does how are you not a guard? Is what I'm asking basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and my granddad was Garda commissioner, so it was all set up for me. Do you know?
Stop.
Yeah,
What a
yeah, yeah. Larry
serious
Wren. Yeah,
enough.
yeah, he was great man. He passed away a few years ago, but I got to play a guard in Copperface Jack's the musical, so that was nice getting to wear the uniforms. And actually, weirdly, do you know a weird thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you probably, I know you're married and stuff, so you probably missed this. Do you never experience like online dating or dating apps? Did you?
I knew of them, but no, I didn't.
Like, like
I have
so.
a lot of friends who fill me in all the fucking time.
Oh yeah, like it's a bit grim to be honest. Like, but look, anyway, I've used them before, and I'm sure I'll use them again. But like, one of the pictures I have up is of me in from Copper's the Musical in a Garda outfit, and I would
Crafty
be.
fucker, yeah.
Yeah, and I would. But well, dirty fuckers them because it's by far the most swiped photo on. You know what I mean?
Is
And
it?
like, yeah, 100%, absolutely. But yeah, in terms of like that journey, like, yeah, it was. I had a great teacher. Like I think loads of people who get into this sort of thing. I had a great music teacher, and she was just a brilliant woman, Pat Morrison. She just really encouraged me, and like also to be fair, being a straight lad who was 6 foot, like if you could sing, you were automatically like an attractive prospect for like the musicals in school and all that sort of stuff. Because yeah, like lads, like I think even now it's probably changed a little bit, and I was probably on the crest of when it started to change. But like there was that thing of like that's gay, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
I was fairly like I was fairly pig-headed in the sense of like that I wouldn't have let that get to me, and I was like, look, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I was sort of I was lucky in the sense that I played a lot of sports and stuff like that, and it kind of balanced out appropriately. But like it was a bit of a like High School Musical vibe going on. Sometimes like I'd be running from like choir or orchestra practice out onto the pitch, and crack like that. But yeah, and from there, like, but my folks were kind of cynical about like in a really nice way, in a way that I would be myself. They were like, right, you can do this, and like went and got singing lessons, and I actually worked on it as a 16, 17-year-old. And when it came to 18 and leaving cert time, they basically asked my singing teacher, who again was a great woman, Christine Scarry, and they were like, they just sat down with her, and she would have kind of, I suppose, seen students go on who would have made it like in the West End and that kind of thing. And they were like, look, Tom loves this. You've been with him for 2 years. We're happy for him to go for it, but we also would like to know, just, is this, are we barking up the wrong tree here? Like, does
Yeah,
he sort of
yeah.
have a chance? Because it's obviously, like anywhere like that, it's totally precarious. And she was like, no, he absolutely does. But then gave some really practical advice. For example, don't go and study musical theatre, go and study acting, because if you study musical theatre, you very much get pigeonholed into musical theatre. Whereas, like, yeah, with my life now, it's nice because I can go into comedy, I can go into musical theatre, and I can go into acting, I can go into all that. So yeah, there was a healthy sort of cynicism about like, look, this is really fucking hard, and give yourself the best chance. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that, because yourself, it's fucking hard enough without pigeonholing yourself and making it even harder.
Yeah, that's probably like that. I suppose you time in your stand-up comedy and everything else. Like I said, you're sharpening the tools now for whatever's put in front of you. Like, because if you got a straight role, you're good to go. But you get a comedic role, and you're like, absolutely, I'm also good to go. Because talking with ironically, I'm talking with Johnny Ward. He keeps on sending me. Now there's a good man now for sending dick memes. There, oh my god,
Yeah,
every
yeah, totally.
every day.
Yeah.
But he was saying like he would. There's no fucking way. He's very funny on stage, comedically very funny. But he says there's no fucking way he would give stand up a go. And I was saying, you should. You actually should give it a go. You've got a good, you're intelligent enough to wrap your head around it. He's like, nah. And the guy has it, because we were in Panto together, and every day he had a new line hidden in somewhere, like, or I would. Now, certain actors you couldn't do that to, because they go, what the fuck? You know yourself. You're like, that's not in the book.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But he was well capable for it. And any curveball I threw him, and that's why I was trying to encourage him. I said, Matt, it will benefit you. And I was pointing you out. I said, look at Tom Moran. I says, he's doing it. He's doing it.
Yeah.
And that stand-up will feed into whatever you're doing. Like, I mean, I bluffed out of stand-up into acting, not the other way around. And it had me ready. I didn't have any hang-ups, because I just went, well, I suppose I'll do what I'm doing. And everybody else around me went, oh no, that's actually fine. So I was like, oh.
But you
right?
know that's the thing because like I was only saying that to one of my pals recently. Like the problem with going and training and becoming going to drama school, and again, I think it's a good thing, and I think you should do it. And I
Yeah,
think if you're gonna do it, like if you want to do it, I think you should do it. But the problem with it is it knocks a lot of the you out of it, and I didn't even realize at the time because to be fair, it also knocked a lot of stuff that needed to be knocked out of me, like a self consciousness, and there was an absolute need for that. Like for me, I think in hindsight, Adam, maybe I'm making sense of myself, but it was the right thing. But also, like, it's funny now, even like being, I don't know, I finished in 2015. So, like, nearly 5 years out the gates now at this stage, and seeing how basically everyone who's still doing it or even still interested in doing it, it's taken them pretty much 5 years or like 3, 4, 5 years to get back to probably where they were at. And I mean that in the best way of being like, for example, if you went to drama school, there's every chance they would have been like, Tom, you need to stop being so fucking coachy, man. Like, this
yeah,
is not
yeah, yeah,
serving
yeah,
you. Whereas the thing that makes you special and that makes you funny and that makes you engaged and that makes you real is exactly that. And
yeah.
you can't let that get knocked out of you. You know what I mean? And drama school has it. If you're not strong enough in yourself, it will do that. It will shave you into like, and I don't want to say like just an archetype or something like that, but there is a tendency for that. And then ultimately you have to go back and like embrace the fact, no, like I don't need to walk perfectly, and maybe I don't need to practice Alexander technique and have a straight back all the time. Like maybe who I am is actually valid as it is, and that's actually what's special about me, and ultimately that's what audiences will connect to.
Would they have left you that way though? Do you know what I mean? Because there has to be an ego nature in the teacher too, like is going, no, I'll fucking make you what I, almost like the army. I will break you down and build you back up again, like and this is what I do, because I'm not letting you out the gate being an original version of yourself when you go out, because I found that with the odd time with the odd director, you're kind of going, man, you're missing a massive chunk of humor there in that, but you're paid and I'm paid, I gotta just follow it. Or that joke is 3 years fucking old, but their ego is, and their title is what they are. They're the director. They have last say on everything. So I'm just wondering, like, if you did stick your heels in and go, no, I'm comfortable. I just want to learn a bit off you here for the next 3 years. Would they have allowed that? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I think some would and some wouldn't. You know that way. And I think you're right. Like for me, and I think that's what makes a great director is someone who's able to just like that the best idea wins. And if you can get like for me, a lot of the job of a director is like shaping the thing absolutely into the thing, but also letting the thing be the thing it wants to be. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And not getting in the way and not fucking pissing all out, like pissing your vision all over it. Like sometimes that's actually not healthy. Like most of the clues are in the writing and they're in the people that you cast to bring the writing to life. And absolutely, now sometimes you need to reel people in and you need to say like this is not the time for that or whatever. I totally, and I fucking love directors. I have so much respect for them. But when you see a good one, you're actually like, oh, they're actually not doing that much. They're kind of
yeah,
getting out of the
yeah,
way,
yeah,
and that's the trick of it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because yeah, I won't name names, but I came across one very recently. Amazing. And to look at her, you'd go, "Are you doing? Oh, you are doing loads.
Yeah,
You have a. She's almost like a sheep herder, brilliant sheep herder,
yeah,
letting it organically, everybody do their thing. But she had two big sticks just to keep us in line, and it felt so, I suppose, liberating is the word. You're like, yeah, oh, lovely, Grant. Now I know the pitch we're playing on. This is great. Rather than boxing us all into one little corner, and you're going, fuck, we're missing. There's loads of meat left on the bone here. Like, what are you doing? But it was just so impressive to see,
totally. Because I had the weird experience of being on the other side of the audition table recently, right? And seeing people come in and audition. And like I think I was saying this to you yesterday, but like the thing that was left for me after that was just like, Jesus Christ, actors are class. Like comedians are class. Like they're coming into this room at like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and they're trying to like do a thing. They're trying to be someone who's not them and bring this right into life and juggle all these balls and come in and yeah, just try to make sense of this weird thing. Like you're like that process of like whether it's auditioning or acting or rehearsing or whatever, it's all weird. Like actually, you were talking about like you know your own capacity for like not overthinking what you're doing. Like I have that with acting because if I stand back and like think about it too hard, I'm like, oh my god, this is so fucking stupid. Like I can't
yeah, Yeah, yeah.
Especially, do you know, it's actually especially if I'm not in comedy. Like if I'm doing a big drama and like you just see yourself and you're fucking giving it load. Like and I'm like, this is mad. Like and so it's just left with such respect for like these people are class. And like when you were in an audition room, you also seen that like everyone. I thought I'd go into an audition room and I'd say that day was one part they were auditioning for, and I'd say they seen 10 people, and I was sure in my bones that someone would come in and straight away they'd start and you'd be like, yep, that's it, like close the shutters. And it actually didn't happen like that at all. Like everyone came in. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there was about half of them that you were just like, yeah, this isn't for them. Like I'm sure they're great in another thing, but this world isn't for them, and that's cool. But the other half you were like, yeah, their version of this is absolutely valid and it would work and it would fit. And then like ultimately like what it comes down to as well is like, and you really get a sense this in audition room was like, who's fucking sound, who's good crack, who's like got their head screwed on, who's going to be like on time, who's not going to be a nightmare in a dressing room. And like you really forget that like that is actually, I would argue, more than half the battle. If you can come in and be like, I am smart, I will be able to take direction, I will be easy to work with, I will be a nice presence in a room, you're halfway there. The rest of it is just like, oh, can he do the thing?
Yeah, well, even it was, and I mean, I've always thought that way. You know, you're going to be a good team player because honestly, the organics of it will come across. Like I talked about, like we were talking briefly yesterday about that if it doesn't look organic, it may look grand on paper, but even the organics of a thing will come across on TV. Like when we were doing that Galway Comedy Festival thing that was out, Laughter in the Air, and I've talked about this in the podcast before when people have asked. A woman went to stop me just as it was about to go on stage because she needed something struck from the stage, something cleared. I went, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, you think you can herd all these sober people into a room, a tent in the middle of Ayr Square in the middle of the day, put 10 cameras in the room and they're not going to be weirded out. The MC had worked his balls off for 15 minutes to make an organic vibe because he knew we all needed it, but also the camera needed it and the audience at home needed it.
Yeah.
And she went, can you just freeze there for 30 seconds? And I went, no, I fucking can't. But the same thing applies. Like, if I suppose a cast in a play or a musical or whatever don't come across like they're actually enjoying each other's company, especially if it's a comedy, because there's got to be a bit of tongue in cheek, like, you know what I mean? Like that Coppers. There isn't a person in the world who don't have a smirk on their face who has heard the Coppers and goes, oh yeah, because that's what it's to be about. Is oh yeah, you know, ridiculous levels of it.
Yeah.
But I as far as like, I remember it was Ward that actually said it to me down in, and I hadn't put much thought into it because he came down to the UCH Panto with us in Limerick. And 2 days in, it was ball breaking from the word go. Like he wasn't in the door 2 seconds. Oh. And we were changing into our uniforms or into our costumes or whatever. And Johnny's in Savage Nick, like, you know, and he works out every day and stuff. And he was like, as we both know, he's a lovely fella, but he probably was a bit apprehensive and just wanted to, you know, and as soon as his top come off, I went, oh, the fat cunt is in. And you could see him kind of look, and then we all just started giving him shit for being fat, like, and there's a pick on the lad, like, you know what I mean? He's in Savage Nick. And from there, he said, I could take a sigh or a leave. It was like, this is going to be a good crack. Yeah. Do you know, there's and this is what was interesting was, a couple of years previous, there was an actor on board who was very big in the amateur scene because it's very much a pro panto, you know, and was very big in the amateur scene, but couldn't hack it because there was nobody patting each other on the back either, to a certain degree. We were all work colleagues who got on well, but there was nobody going, you are amazing. Did I tell you were amazing? That solo you just did there was amazing. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you did it this morning. You did it yesterday. Pull up your trousers and get on with the fucking job, like. And that was the vibe. And it suited the likes of Ward, and he didn't realize he ended up loving it. He was like, fuck, the chemistry around here is great crack. Everybody's has a trust that the job will get done to the best of our ability, but there's no pressure, there's no egos egos weren't accepted, you know, that kind of way. It was like, no, we're all in this together to make a good product, you know.
Oh, that is huge. And I think actually, like, Johnny is a brilliant example of it because I got to do Copper's musical with Johnny, and he is the perfect example of a fella who comes in and Because certainly in Coppers, like, because I know he played your baddie, didn't he,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Limerick?
yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in Coppers, like, obviously the baddie is like a huge part of Panto, but like in Coppers, it's literally like he's Gino, he's the main man. For anyone who's seen the show, like, you know what I mean. But he's like the captain of the Dublin senior football team. He's the romantic interest. He's all of it. Like, he is the focal point of the show, and it was the best example I'd ever seen in a fella coming in and making. I don't want to use stupid words, but indulge me, like making a cast a family and like coming in and including everyone and slagging everyone, and that's how he did it, and also being up for slagging himself. And I don't know if he did a thing with us where he'd write a song about everyone in the cast at every before every show. He'd pretty much bang up a song on our WhatsApp group that he'd have written. So like it could have been, it could have been Hey Jude, but he'd change the words to like, whatever it was, like. And just things like that really like bring a cast together, but in a really organic way. And like it was just such good leadership without ever feeling like you were being led. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like real subtle thing, but I was like, oh, that's what it is to be a fucking leading man and a nice person, and also just fun to be around. It's a great thing.
Yeah, Dick memes. That's his
Dick
that's his
that's what
currency
I
is Dick memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did, and and every year we have the cast dinner, and there's the roast that goes on. And now I'd seen it gone another way. I remember years ago myself and Carl Spain were in one, and like that you were talking about when you joined drama school or whatever, and you'd gone from ripping the piss with your mates into being emotional and whatnot is your currency. And these people weren't ready for Carl Spain. Like myself and Carl, we had a dressing room, and it was roast. We had nothing good to say to each other, but that's how we got on. Like,
yeah.
And it was just roasting, like horrendous stuff. And everybody got it around Carl. And within a couple of days, I had to pull him in and go, Carl, it ain't working on some of these folks, especially the dancers.
Right.
More so the dancers,
Yeah.
because they're very emotional. They're very promiscuous bunch who all lie on top of each other and whatnot, and
Yeah.
they speak like they're actually on a reality TV show. And I just found it very interesting the way they speak. It's all dramatics about relationships. That's that's their whole conversation. And Carl rolls in and starts giving them shit from the highest level, and they just weren't. They were getting upset and taking it literally. And so I had to give him a pep talk and give them a pep talk and go, you need to wind it in. And also, you need to not take him so seriously. That means he really likes you. If he doesn't talk to you, he doesn't fucking like you, And they had never come across that concept before,
Yeah. Well, no, it's so true, because like if someone is, because I think I am the easiest person to slag in the world. Like I am just there for the taking.
Are you growing a Ronnie, by the way?
It's a Coroni. Yeah, it's a Coroni. It's my Corona.
Ronnie?
Yeah, it's a coronavirus Ronnie. So it's it's not great right now, but it's about 6 days old. So I reckon by the time we're out, it should be something even more horrific. I hate it. I actually hate it. My isolation is actually fine, except for every time I look in the mirror. I said I'd do it.
We're 53 minutes in, Tom, and I've just been eyeballing it going, is that a shadow? Is he just not been washing? What's going on?
Oh no. yeah, it's awful.
See, this is the curse of being the Celtic blooded, white, fair haired man. I also have a blonde mustache. It could be as strong as a moose, but it's blonde all the way out. You end up just looking kind of homeless by the end of it. There's no strength to unless it's a black mustache or a bright fucking orange mustache. They don't cut it. They don't.
No, I think what I might get away with is kind of looking like a porn star version of a 1916 Rising leader. I think I might get that far, but that's about it.
Yeah, bit of brill cream in the hair, get it down. Get the Collins look going on. Like
exactly.
You weren't tempted to do an exotic Joe and grow it down the sides as well. Like, were you in dyed black? Have you been watching Tiger King?
My friend did that for Movember, and he just looked like a walrus. I wasn't having it.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut across you there. I've just been eyeballing it. I had 50 minutes with my breaking point. I just had to fucking say it.
I like how it took that long.
Yeah, listen, I'm a professional. I tried to keep... If this was a half-hour podcast, it would have never gotten a mention, like.
Yeah, totally. This is my dancer, and you're my Carl Spain,
Yeah, exactly. But you were, sorry to cut back, you were saying you're probably one of the easiest people to get on with. But is it that...
Or it's a slag.
Is that part of your... But also, yeah, it's a slag because you're you have a level of vulnerability, but there's also something about you where you go, that lad he'll take a verbal slap, not about it, like, you know what I mean, like, because there's some people you'd meet and you go, oh no, I can't, you know, because they, not that they're frail, but they're just not built that way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember we have the cast dinner at the end of the panto, and it's left to me to give out the awards.
Right.
And it's an awards night like any sporting affair, where even the most minor stupid thing you're going to get ripped asunder for. Yeah. And year one, I remember the leading man, lovely guy, built like a fucking god, but very, very camp and very emotional and very good. But if you look at the man, you go, fucking hell. 6'2", built like fucking, you know, that big V back. You go, Jesus Christ. And I'll never forget, this will tell you how raw I was to the scenario. Theatre. I had only seen him the first 2 days in character, playing a very bassy man and all the rest of it. And then I sat down beside him and I was, man, fucking Bill to you. And he was originally from Limerick. You must have played a fair bit of ball in your day, like rugby would be ball. And I went, and he just turned to me and just went, Jesus, no, chicken. It's all the dancing chair. I went, oh, fuck me, right. Wow, I am so fucking ignorant at this moment. Like, but that man at the dinner that day, he had a juicy roast, and I hit him hard with it, because everybody got it hard. Yeah. But fuck me, he was not happy. He was like, And I felt I had to say something to him afterwards, because it wasn't like we'd just met for the first time and we're only a couple of, I knew it had hurt him. Yeah. So I went up and I went, here, man, you do know, like, it was because it's a group and everybody got it, and I slagged myself and I allowed people to fucking have a rip at me. That means you're part of the gang. He's like, I know, but I just can't deal with it. I was like, fair enough. You know?
Yeah, no, and it's funny. I think I like it. Like, I think I like, as you're saying, I think that, like, I know myself, I like, if I'm slagging you, it means I like you. And I think if someone's willing to sort of pay you like that much attention, it means that they fucking like you and they know you can take it. Like, for me, it would be like, that'd be like a deal breaker for a friendship or even a relationship. Like, if if you couldn't go there with someone, just wouldn't be for me. I don't like as much as is possible. Now I'm like, you know, within reason, but like, I kind of want to have friendships or relationships where you can kind of go anywhere. Like, that's kind of the point of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that I think it's a very Irish thing too, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Because I lived in the States for a while and they're so literal. And you say something and you're just ripping the piss and they're like, what? Oh, fuck, right. We need to start at the ground level here, so, and work up, you know, to explain I'm taking the fucking piss. And also, like, I'd Alan Quinlan, and only because I follow Munster or whatever, but I'd Alan Quinlan and Dennis Leamy on, and they talked about, like, new players coming in who big fucking names, like, but to show them that they cared and that you're part of the group now, they would do the most horrific things. Like, Quinlan talked about like Frankie Sheehan at the time. He was the Irish hooker. One of the lads is after breaking up. It was the girl had broken off an engagement, you know, just serious enough, you know. And in any other environment, it would have been just avoid him for a few days or anything else. Frankie Sheehan brought in a CD of the greatest love ballads and played it as hard as he could over Thomond Park Tannoy through the whole training session. Locked the room door, the whole lot. Nobody could. And they kept on all going, like nothing. But it was out in the open. They all dealt with it. Arm around him, you know. Even Dougie Howlett, when he joined from being the top try scorer from the All Blacks, came straight to them from the Blues after the World Cup. And because Dougie was revered, I suppose in his head, he'd probably had his arse kissed for the last 15 years or 10 years or whatever. He landed into Munster, and because the last thing about him in the news was they lost the World Cup final a couple of months previous, and he got drunk, which he was not much of a drinker, but he got drunk and ran down a street of cars, down the roofs and bonnets, and he got arrested for it. And he made a big public fucking, on national television, made a public fucking display, the whole lot about how he's apologising, this is not the values of rugby. And when he first day arrived in, all the lads, he walked in, they got introduced, all the lads ran away, jumped into their cars with, lads, mind the cars, and drove out of the car park and left him there. But again, it was the same thing. It was a shock to the system, but it was like, I'm part of the gang now, you know?
Like the worst thing you can do for me, and I know not everyone's the same, and I've actually got in trouble for this once or twice, but like not like we had one in Coppers the musical. Now I was totally well. I actually still think it was funny, but anyway, the fellas who wrote the music and the lyrics, they originally had a verse in a song which was about Gino, which was Johnny's character, who was also a clamper, and one of the lyrics was talking, yeah, it was saying how much of a dickhead he was of a clamper, and they said, at his own mother's funeral, he clamped the hearse, and that was one of the lyrics. And then in our fourth week of rehearsals, before we went on, the guy who wrote that song, his mother died, and there was a message put into our WhatsApp group. So everyone was putting in like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear. And
I'm licking my lips at this now. Go on.
I did the exact same, and it was a really heartfelt message. I was like, so sorry to hear. Thinking of you and the family. Fingers crossed they won't clamp the hearse. And within like 30 seconds of it going up, but like Johnny rang me and he was like, man, you have to delete that like this second. And I was like, but no, like it's naming the thing. Like he wrote the song, he knows it's funny, he's a comedian, he like, you know, if I said that to you, or if God forbid something happened,
I would love people to say that to me.
Me too. And I think but you have to make a judgment call, because some people wouldn't, and they, you know, they're just not in that headspace. But for me, like I need that. It's, if you don't name the thing, then it becomes awkward, and then it becomes an elephant in the room. Then there's a stigma around it. Whereas if you just like, if you make that joke and or like whatever, and just break that tension, like everyone can just breathe. Then, you know. It's...
Yeah. Well, I think coming from a comedic point of view, he'd probably, because he wrote that lyric, he probably would have appreciated. I certainly in that moment it would be like, oh, that's what I needed. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's what I fucking needed. Like, because it's like, and I think people that write comedy and stuff, they understand that it's always funny, regardless of the situation. It was fucking funny before, and it's funny after. You know what I mean? And that's what I found in comedy clubs. Sometimes when people have an issue with a situation, you're like, oh, hold on. Now, I rarely get it, because I think the way I come across, people probably figure it's pointless, or they get it. They're like, oh, he's ridiculous. But a few of my friends I've been there, I've stood beside them as people come up, and, you know, so my sister has a fucking bad leg, and I didn't enjoy that bit. And you're like, hold on, all the stuff about cancer and rape, you didn't mind any of that. But now because that related to you in a public forum, fuck off. It was, and it's, you know, now you can't educate people on the spot either, because they're not comedians or they're not comedy writers or whatever.
Yeah.
But I totally full-heartedly agree. If it was funny beforehand, it's funny fucking afterwards. Like, funny is funny, you know.
Funny is funny, and I think like the more because like it is a real interesting thing, and you do see it now, and like I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of talking about social media or stuff like that, because Jesus Christ, you could be here all day. But like if there is, I don't know, for me, like humor is just like the best thing, and it's like, for example, right, what I'd love to be, where I want my sort of career to go, is I'd love to be writing for film and TV, and also being in the shows, like someone like a Sharon Horgan or a Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I love that world, and I'd love to do that. But like what you can, and I like writing about like actual real life shit, and I like writing about like dramatic situations. But the minute it stops being funny, like even if I go see fucking any kind of movie, any big drama, anything that wins an Oscar, like if none of it is funny, I don't buy it, because I'm like, well, it's just not real then. Like your dramas have to be comedic and your comedies have to be dramatic. For me, anyway, that's just my taste. Like, but because that's just what real life is, you know, like in those darkest moments, you know, like the darkest moments, like they're probably when you have the biggest laughs, and that's so cathartic, and there's a real beauty in that.
Yeah, because people, now I'm a cynic anyway, like, but when people get carried away with a thing, something in me has to find a weakness in it and go, oh, hold on now 1 second. Not because I'm a contrarian, but I probably keep it to myself a lot of the time. Like, but I do love poking the stick too, and go, I know you all thought this is good. And I do it to Blind Boy, even though I know the guy's a genius. But there's times where I have to go, let's call a fucking spade a spade here, lads. Do you know, just to be a bollocks. But also, like, I was watching, people got properly carried away with the movie The Joker. And I remember I tweeted about it, and it was like, unbelievable acting. Fucking zero crack. Do you know? And for me, I was like, and I actually got roused from people about that. I went, well, it wasn't supposed to be about crack. I went, he's a fucking clown.
Yeah.
Who's gone mad. Jesus Christ. Give any tick fucker a script, and that's the basis of it. There's going to be some crack pop up somewhere. Stick a bit of dark humor in it. I'll never forget, actually, my wife, she makes me fucking howl sometimes. We're watching we're watching it, and he's there, he's finally fucking snapped or whatever, he's trying to cool the brain down or trying to calm himself down, he rips everything out of the fucking fridge, and because it's the Joker, it's part of the whole Batman fucking, you know, storyline and everything, she's watching it with that mindset, you know, because she's hoping fucking Batman is going to show up somewhere or something.
Yeah.
We're watching it, and he's ripping out all the stuff out of the fridge, and he climbs into the fridge and closes it behind him. She went, I knew she was only watching it with half an eye when she came out with this. She went, oh, here we go. I said, here we go, what? Because this is the bit where he turns into the Penguin, isn't it? That's fucking beautiful. That would be a fucking amazing if he stood out as the Penguin after being in the fridge for an hour. I went, what movie do you think? And I tweeted that. And people were nearly like, oh, come on. And you're like, would you ever fuck off? Like, it's that movie, it was lovely, great, really well acted, fucking, and for anybody who has deep mental issues, I'm sure it fucking rang through in some which way. But also, don't go around shooting people either, lads, you know. But there was no crack anywhere through the whole thing, and for me, I have to see, give me some sort of fucking or somewhere in it, like, you know. But it didn't. I don't know. For me, the same as you, it was like, well, fuck it, right? I'll walk away from that now.
Yeah, like, do you ever think about? I think about this all the time. Or, well, I think about it selfishly for myself. But looking at someone's career like Daniel Day-Lewis, and I'm like, that must be shit crack. Like, imagine it. Just all the fun parts about being part of a cast and the crack and the slagging and all that. Like, and I know he's a craftsman. I know he's incredible at what he does. But also, like, like the whole thing that people love about him is that he deprives himself of like a real life to inhabit someone else's real life, and I'm like, that sounds I really have zero interest in that. I have great interest in doing brilliant performances in whatever medium that is, but not at the sacrifice of having a bit of fun.
Well, it cuts both ways. Like I was watching, I mean, and everybody loves they all loved, you know, the little anecdotes about how he stays in character for so long, and he trained when he played the boxer, like he trained to the level that he couldn't have been a boxer. And Liam Neeson tells about when he gangs in New York at the fucking catering table, like, and he's like, well, Dan, how are you getting on? He's like, you know, he stayed in character, and he called him priest and stuff. And he was like, oh, Jesus Christ. But you're at a catering table. There's cameras everywhere. Relax, you know.
Yeah.
But also then I have an admiration for somebody like, you know, Seth Rogen, who can play the same bloke. He basically plays himself in everything and gets away with it. But he's still enjoyable to watch, like, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Like, I think that's the charm of it. Like, because I hate that universe that is created, like, where, you know, you can't go, like, for example, Daniel Day-Lewis will never do like an interview about that. It's like, I kind of would like, I think people like Seth Rogen not because they like the character Seth Rogen plays. They like Seth Rogen because they like Seth Rogen. You know what I mean? And I actually think that there's something to be said for like seeing boys like that who their careers evolved. So like even looking at like Bradley Cooper or Matthew McConaughey, and these are lads who are winning Oscars now, but they started in like rom-coms, they started as being affable lads, and then they were on like chat shows and people got to know them, and you still totally buy them in a big dramatic role. Like it's not about that. Sometimes, like, because I even remember hearing, like, you know, when you're in drama school and like you listen to all these interviews with these great actors and hearing boys like De Niro or something saying, yeah, like, you don't want to do too many interviews, you know, if you get to a level where people want to interview you, because then people will see you as you and not the character. And I'm just like, fuck that. That's not true. People aren't stupid. Like, they know it's pretend. You know what I mean? That's the fun of it. But like, I still actually want to. I'd hate to have a career that ever stopped me from being me. You know what I mean? I would hate that.
Well, that was, I remember reading, it was, I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, and that was his whole thing. He could absolutely step outside himself and understood what he was. Like, you know, he was this hulking colossus with a fucking, by all accounts, actually, a culchy Austrian accent. Not even a city one. Really? He had a culchy Austrian accent. That's why he couldn't get a gig in Austria or Germany, because he just sounded like a culchy. Wow. So, yeah, but it was Clint Eastwood that said it to him, basically. But sure, just point out the elephant in the room, basically. And that's why in all of his movies, his action movies, there was always a couple of stupid outliners, you know. And it was nearly almost like him winking to the camera, a certain, you know, taking away, not even building a fourth wall, let alone fucking getting a look behind it. it was, you know, when he like in fucking, was it Commando or one of them, basically, you know, he broke a man's neck sitting beside him in the airplane. And he goes, could I get the blankets? My friend is dead tired. You know, and you're like, that's so shit, but brilliant.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're dead right. Point out exactly and we can still get on board with you, Arnie, because you're massive and you are Arnie. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, it's huge, and like you see it with. I really like seeing boys like The Rock or something get into that world, because I fucking love when I see comedians go and like smash out. I love that, because even though I know we came from different angles, but like weirdly, I love. To be honest, like sometimes I just want to say like acting. It's not actually that hard. Like it's kind of easy actually. Like, and especially good acting. Like good acting is so boring. Like if I want to do good acting, I just stop. Like I say good acting with inverted commas. What I'll do, right? If I want to do good acting right now, I'll basically stop talking like a person, like I'm talking to now on this chat, and I'll take everything down real quiet, and I'll start talking like this, and like that's basically good acting. Like that's what it is.
Chills. I got chills there, Tom.
You know what I mean? But like you see that, like you see like what one of the most iconic, 30 seconds of movie ever is like Liam Neeson, like, I will find you and I will. And like, but you're just like, oh yeah, that's just a lad not talking like a lad. Like, and like it's really compelling. But like I'd love to hear Liam Neeson chat like we're chatting now. And like sometimes I hate when actors are so like fucking uptight and mysterious, and like you just want to see them go and be like a little bit goofy and a little bit themselves. So that's why I love when you see comedians go in and like smash it in an acting role, and you're kind of like, yeah, it's not complicated. And as you said earlier, like those skills, they absolutely inform each other. Like I think if you can do stand-up comedy, I bet you have a great chance of doing anything else in any other level of performance, like especially like writing or acting. Like I bet you can. Whereas I don't think the same is true. I don't think writers can do stand-up, and I'm not sure a lot of actors could do stand-up either. But I think if you can do stand-up comedy, not absolutely all stand-ups can't act, and like I've seen it go wrong. I'm sure you have too. But like I think they've got a much better chance, because you have that self-awareness, you have that like ability to relate to other people, and like that's half the battle.
Also, you can dip back in. I find myself dipping back into the life too. Like, you know what I mean? So like I worked in construction for years. Like, give me any fucking alpha role. You know what I mean? And I'll find you a funny fucker somewhere that I worked with, Or you look at somebody like, I suppose, Kevin Hart, Jamie Foxx. These people were all stand-ups first.
Yeah.
They went on to be incredible fucking actors as a result of it. Like, because I suppose they weren't inhibited. But also, I suppose if Day-Lewis went to college somewhere, they broke him down. And he was the perfect creation that came out the other side. Fuck all personality. Fuck all crack. But savage when you put a camera on him, like. Or I'd imagine on a stage too would probably be amazing as well, like.
Well, I don't know if you heard that story, but he doesn't do stage work because he does go so deep that he was doing. I could be foggy in the details here, but I believe he was doing Hamlet, and he actually saw the actual ghost of his actual dad, ran off the stage, and has never done stage work since.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Of course, you know what I mean. Of course he would, like.
Yeah.
And hey, you'll be getting no dick memes off that lad, I'd say, if you're sharing the dressing room with.
No, certainly
so
not.
We'll wrap it up. So what's next on the card? I know what the fuck is next on the cards. The planet could end at the minute, but what's in the book? That is Copper's coming back again?
Yeah, so that's the hope, and I think Coppers is a really well placed show to come back. Look, we're meant to be back in the Olympia Theatre, the Cork Opera House, and in the concert hall in Limerick, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. And tickets are still on sale as of now. It's all going ahead, and it's happening over June and July, so there's a chance. But if not, it will happen later in the year when all this calms down. And I think it's the perfect show in the sense that like it's coppers, it's nurses, it's guards, it's GAA, it's the pillars of our community that we're kind of really relying on now. And like what we were talking about earlier, it's a bundle of laughs, it's a bundle of joy. So hopefully that'll be on later this year. And as well, my show, Comedically Heartbroken, my solo comedy show, hopefully be back up and running at some point when we get back to normality. But yeah, between now and then, I suppose you can get us on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff at tmoran93, and sure, we'll all try stay sane together.
Jeez, that is how you wrap up a conversation. See that? That's a profession.
I'm a podcaster too, Tom.
I meant to get into that. You're a podcaster as well.
But so there's that there as well. It's personality bingo, and it's we play with a bingo machine, and there's 60 balls, 60 questions, 60 minutes. So it kind of keeps a freshness to the sort of the format. So the questions could be anything from like, have you ever seen a ghost, or what's the hardest time you've ever laughed, or your best relationship with someone over the age of 65, what are your memories of 9/11? It's like a mad zany kind of chat, no more than what you kind of do naturally here, but it's a bit of a format on that. So that's called personality bingo. So that's another avenue.
I put the link in the show notes.
Sure.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Lovely stuff, man.
Great stuff. We should do that sometime. Yeah.
I'd love to. You know, it's actually on a bit of a. I did it for 3 years, and then you know yourself, it's all encompassing when you're knocking one out every week. So I actually took a bit of a break from it because I'm the kind of fucker. If I'm gonna do something, I want to do it right, or I don't want to do it. But But later this year, I think I'm gonna remount it. Hopefully, in the run up to Comedically Heartbroken come back on, and you'd be a dream guest. We'd have the crack.
Brilliant stuff. Tom Moran. Or Tom Moran, for anybody listening who isn't from Ireland.
Fuck off now.
Fuck off, O'Mahony. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a million, brother.
Thanks very much, Tom. Appreciate it.